Today is Wednesday, November 19th, and this is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. I've been working with the homeschooling community for almost all of my teaching career, dating all the way back to around 2000, so 25 years. Of course, I was teaching in private schools for the first 9 or 10 years of that career, and then I moved into self-employment and independent work in 2008, but I was still working in private schools at the time. So I've had a lot of experience with homeschooling and homeschool families. I've seen what homeschool programs do, and I've been very critical of homeschooling because much of what is done in the homeschooling community is lazy and irrational, if not just flat out false. And in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I've been working for almost 18 years now to actually make a homeschool program that makes sense for Catholic students. I'd like to take some time today to share some updates on how I think we're solving the problems of Catholic homeschooling in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and how we're actually putting homeschool students in a position to reap the benefits that are available to them when homeschooling is done intelligently. Now, if I was to start out and summarize the complaints that I have against homeschooling, some of them are moral, some of them are intellectual, and some of them are administrative. I've got a lot of criticisms against what's done in the name of homeschooling. Many people in the 90s saw homeschooling as a way to make money. Many of the programs that run are literally cash cows that really serve no purpose other than to generate income, just like modern schools. I mean, that's really the sin of modern schools, is that they look at education as easy business, easy money, and they really don't take upon themselves responsibility for the needs of the students. They certainly don't work to serve the glory of God and provide education worthy of the Catholic faith. Many rushed into publishing in homeschooling. The whole homeschool convention culture developed, and people were just trying to sell everything that wasn't nailed down. Anything that they could put together and print was up for sale, and it was just a giant mess. You had this whole great books culture trying to justify the constant buying of supplies and books, that somehow this consumer culture in homeschool circles was a mark of some kind of love of learning. Just total marketing nonsense that was promoted by this evil culture of Christian publishing companies and marketing people that are just a bunch of grifters constantly trying to make money off of every controversy and every event in the name of Jesus, which is really grievous. In the 90s, you also had the fake classical education movement started by the Protestant Doug Wilson, which was followed incomprehensibly by Catholics like Laura Berquist, who ran with this Dorothy Sayers Protestant 3 stages of learning nonsense, and just brought Protestant false educational philosophy into Catholic circles, and actually had the audacity to present it as if it was real Catholic education. Just crazy. The undiscerning and lazy Catholic community swallowed it all up, asking for no evidence, required no support for anything that was said in marketing materials or at homeschool conferences, and this whole fake classical education movement was born. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of schools are operating on a philosophical foundation, making claims that are just demonstrably false, historically, theologically, philosophically, and so on. And I could go on, criticizing what, as I said, was intellectual and really, in my opinion, moral evil in homeschool circles. And homeschool students, the children, ultimately paid the price for it. First of all, they didn't get the education that they needed. They didn't get a true Catholic education. They were sent into the world unequipped. And even if they had a relative appearance of success, because they may have accomplished more than their public school peers did because the standards are so low, they didn't get the education that they should have received as Catholic children, especially in a homeschool environment where so much of the trouble of modern schooling is removed. So I feel bad for the kids. And homeschooling, as you likely know, is roundly mocked and criticized for its hype and boasting when parents start homeschooling and the almost non-existent results that it produces. It really doesn't produce any result. And homeschooling has been going for 30, 40 years now, strong. Very, very little to show for all of the talk, all the money spent, all the time invested, and so on. And this has to do with these philosophical issues, with these moral issues, with the fact that it really has been just a money-making scam for the most part. But thankfully, in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we've been able to make great progress in allowing homeschooling, Catholic homeschooling, to move closer and closer to its potential. And this is possible, of course, because it's built on a sound philosophical foundation. It's actually true. The study materials are actually those studied and taught by history's wise men and saints. But even beyond all of the intellectual advantages and the content, the philosophical foundation, and so on, there are important practical benefits that we've made available and are still just making available for the first time to students in the academy that are going to fix this problem of homeschooling, that are going to give homeschool students the advantages that they should have over their peers in modern schools. And I think it's going to shake things up quite a bit as it all gets worked out. Now, here's the biggest practical or administrative criticism that I have against the homeschool culture that's been in place for 30, 40 years now. What they've done is just lazily attempt to bring the modern school system home. If you go to a homeschool program website or look in a catalog, you'll see that they're essentially selling a K-12 curriculum to be studied by a kid at home. It's like my wife, when she was in high school, she had mono and she missed months of school. And they sent her home with books, and she did her schoolwork at home. That's basically how most homeschooling programs look at homeschooling. You're like a kid who's at home doing his schoolwork by himself. You're essentially a sick kid working at home. It's just a lazy, irresponsible vision for homeschooling. But it made tons of money because parents were so eager to do something different, even if what they did wasn't better than what already existed. At least it was different. And many people are content just to do something different. And that's what they did. They had their kids work like school kids who were suspended or sick. The whole thing is just very strange. Why parents would ever think to do that. Once we come out of the school system, we're no longer accountable to the school curriculum or calendar, to the textbooks they use, the courses they teach. There are some general requirements that relate to subject areas, but they don't dictate what resources need to be used, methods that need to be followed, scheduling, and so on. When homeschool programs and homeschool families choose to do what modern schools do, there's only one reason why they do so, and it's because they just will it. They do at home what the failing schools are doing and imagine that they're fixing things. It's just really a bunch of nonsense. But it's made a few businesses tons of money, and it's produced no results. So this idea of bringing schoolwork home and calling that homeschooling, that's just a giant mistake, a very great mistake that really has become the norm for homeschooling. And that's what I principally have a problem with. That's my principal complaint, because it puts the students, the homeschool students, at a terrible, terrible disadvantage. Terrible disadvantage. And I'd like to explain the practical disadvantage that homeschool students have. What schools do is thought of in ways that are overly simplified, inaccurate, and very misleading. What schools actually do is far less impressive than what they say they do. Schools love to advertise with all of their successful students. They love to share their success stories. But the kids who are successful in modern schools are almost always successful because they've got engaged parents pushing and pulling them through their years of schooling. They bring learning and culture and discipline, family values, extracurricular skills and activities. They bring all of this to school with them. The schools are not the source of their achievements, and yet the schools pretend as if they are. And the schools parade these students around, celebrating their achievements and pretending that this is the work of the schools. But this is like bringing a bunch of Olympic athletes to the doctor's office and having the doctor present them as proofs of his expertise in medicine. No one would fall for that for a second. But we all fall for that when we see the schools talking about their achievements, handing out awards, holding pep rallies and ceremonies and so on, decorating students at graduation. It's made to appear that the schools are succeeding in their work when their work has almost nothing to do with the achievements of individual students. And if we look carefully at the school program, we find that these students who are achieving all these things, let's say academically, the students with all the achievements are in the so-called honors class, and the honors class is nothing more than the class that actually is studying the school's stated curriculum. The honors class is a group of 10, 20 students who are actually working at grade level and doing the work the school says it's doing in all of its documentation and its published curriculum, standards, and so on. The honors kids are the ones doing that work, and most of them, as I said, come from strong families that are pushing academics, that are concerned about college admission, that are engaged in the school community, and so on. These are the honors kids. I was one of those kids. When students can't keep up with the program, when kids can't work at that level, the school simply creates a second level. They create the so-called level 1 courses, which are really level 2 courses. And so the students are bumped down out of the honors class, and they go to a lower level where the curriculum is watered down, the pace is slowed down, the standards are lowered, and this group of kids that can't work at the main pace are provided with almost a separate school program of their own. And so all of a sudden we've got kids who couldn't earn good grades with the main class now bumped down to a level where they get good grades for work that's not good quality at a second level. They go to school, they get credit every day for being at school, they get credit for all their classes. And this whole idea that they're in a separate level at their so-called grade level, so now not only is it, let's say, 10th grade, but we now have 10th grade level 1, or honors, and then we've got 10th grade level 2, which is a whole separate grading system. And it just keeps going. If you can't stay with the class in level 1, they just make a level 2 class, and they knock all of the struggling students down to another level, make all of the grading easier, water down the curriculum, slow the pace, and you've got another group of students, all called 10th graders, making their way through the high school on the path to graduation. And it can go even further. It can go into levels like 2A and 2B. They just call them remedial classes and so on. But what's misleading about all of it is that when all is said and done, these kids working at all different levels, with all different standards, they're all called 10th graders. And if you ask, what are these kids studying? The school will direct you to the school's public curriculum standards to look at the 10th grade information, as if there's just one 10th grade program that all these kids are working through. Now, the danger of this is that it's very misleading. The schools basically can't fail. They just keep bumping kids into lower and lower levels, and in the end, just about everyone who attends school gets a diploma. It really just becomes a diploma that's granted to anyone who shows up regularly. And this is what fundamentally puts homeschool students at a disadvantage, because the homeschool students, unlike the level 2B bobos, as we used to call them, the homeschool students don't show up. The homeschool students don't get credit for sitting in their desk and staring out the window through 10th grade history class. They don't get the time credit. They don't get the attendance. They don't even have a chance to earn the D that will get them their diploma. The only thing that the homeschool student has is some kind of academic achievement or work completed, some sign of academic work. The school kids are not judged by academic work. No one even knows what the students are actually doing. But for the homeschool students, since they don't show up and they don't get the automatic diploma for being present, pressure is put on them to show what academic work they're getting done. And unfortunately, they usually aren't getting much academic work done. And so they look doubly ridiculous because they don't get the attendance credit. They're looked at from the school perspective, which is where, let's be honest, which is where almost all of the academic activity takes place in our society. They're looked at as kids who are like suspended from school or sick, the homeschool kids who do their schoolwork at home. They don't get the attendance credit, and they rarely have any academic work to show for it. It really looks like they're doing nothing. And unfortunately, this is often true. If they do present any academic work, that work is compared to the work of the honors class, which the school presents as representative of its students. The homeschool work is compared to the work of the honors class, which of course is a misrepresentation of the school community, a misrepresentation of the work that the school students actually do. And so you've just got layer upon layer of disadvantage that homeschool students have to deal with. Some of it is because of the injustice of the school system, the dishonesty of the school system, and how they compare themselves to homeschool students. Much of the disadvantage the homeschool students have comes from the curricula or programs that they use, which make no sense and actually disadvantage the homeschool students. And thirdly, from the cluelessness and lack of discipline in their parents who sign up for homeschooling and are in no way either equipped or committed or capable of doing what they sign up to do. And because of this, as I said, I feel sorry for the kids because they really have no chance. And I know there are people who will try to put this big positive spin on homeschooling and tell you all of the great things about homeschooling. But what they'll do, these programs especially, they'll do what the schools do. They'll share the achievements of kids who achieve things independently and pretend that that is the work of the school itself. It's misrepresenting. It's dishonest. And worst of all, like I said, it's misleading. It creates an appearance of something, a situation that's not actually true, that's not actually good. If you sign your children up for this program, you're not going to get the awards that this one random student got, whose circumstances are nothing like your children's circumstances. My wife and I deal with this all the time. We'll have parents contact us and say things like, if I sign my student up for the student plan, does that mean he'll be able to get a diploma at the end of the 4 years? And we say, of course not. Of course, signing up for the student plan doesn't get your child a diploma. The child has to do all the work. The diploma certifies that the work listed in the program has actually been completed. The student has to do all the work, complete all of the assessments, pass all of the assessments, and there's no level 1, level 2, level 3. There's none of this school nonsense. He has to get all the work done. So there's no way that we can tell you that your child is going to get the diploma because we have no idea what your child is going to actually do. It's all conditional. If your child completes all of the work required for the Academy's high school diploma, then yes, he'll get the diploma. But this is not a public school. This is not a modern Catholic school. You're not going to get a diploma because you pay the tuition. That's not how this works. This is real education. And we get this kind of questioning all the time. And when I hear it, I just scratch my head and ask myself, what are these people thinking? They honestly think that you can pay tuition and get a diploma after a certain amount of time. Makes no sense, but that's how things work, and it's certain that they can find a program that will gladly do that, that will take their tuition, put them through the lowest possible standard of work requirement, and give them a diploma in exchange for their money. They're called diploma mills. That's what they do. But in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we're not playing that game. We don't do that nonsense. In fact, we do everything differently, and that's what I'd like to talk about. How we actually fix these problems and put Catholic homeschool students at an advantage over their peers. Now, as I said, the biggest problem, the biggest disadvantage that homeschool students have is that they don't attend school. They don't get any credit for the time that's spent in class. And this is a big part of high school graduation. I've had Catholic families contact me and tell me that they've got adult kids living at home because they never got a diploma. And these parents, because they don't know what they're doing, they've had these kids home, and many of them have been doing valuable activities, but there's just no system by which they receive any credit for the activity they do. They don't receive any credit for the books they read, or even good movies or documentaries that they watch, for which kids in schools get credit. They've never recorded the children's activities, and so they're left with these kids who have no high school diploma because the parents just totally dropped the ball and had no system in place to manage the education of their kids. And these kids can be 21, 22, 23 years old, still putzing around in life because they never got a homeschool diploma. Just ridiculous nonsense. If they would have gone to school, if they just would have gone to school, they would have had a diploma at 18. But no, they were homeschooled, and so now here they are as just the poster children of modern Christian impractical chaos, walking around lacking what's almost an automatic award given to every kid who shows up at public school. It's embarrassing. And this is done in Christ's name. There's no excuse for it. So the very first problem that we need to fix in homeschooling circles is that we need to provide our children with a credit system that records their academic activity, just like kids who show up at school. There has to be a system that records academic activity and credits the students with what's called instructional time in educational circles. As far as I know, there's no homeschool program that does this. What our state does, and this is embarrassing, what our state does here in North Carolina is that it asks the parents to keep homeschool attendance records. Now just think of how ridiculous this is. The parents volunteer to homeschool. They're legally accountable to provide their children with an education that's equivalent to what's available from the state. But they leave the record keeping to the one who's accountable. This is like leaving the grade book open to the students themselves and asking them to please write their grades in the book. So you get this ridiculous system with no integrity. You can't have any confidence in any of these records because there has to be third-party accountability. There has to be some kind of objective external measure. And in most homeschooling circles, there's no such measure, no such accountability. So you just get this ridiculous self-reporting nonsense. Ultimately, this comes back to hurt the students because everyone knows this and no one trusts the records. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, over the past year, I've worked to fix this. I've had to do all of this privately with customized programming because it's not done in other places. And so in our program, in our study center, which is online, we would call the Studium, all of the academic activity that our students complete is recorded and is assigned instructional time credit. So, for example, if a student completes a quiz in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, not only do they get a grade book, activity, and a grade, but they also get credit for instructional time. If they submit an assignment, not only do they get a grade and feedback for the assignment, but they also get instructional time credits. If they watch a video, and this is a new development just this week, if I post a video for a lesson and a student watches the video, let's say he watches a 30-minute video, he's credited with 30 minutes of instructional time as if he was sitting in a classroom with a teacher, which he is. So all of the academic activity that students do in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is not only graded for them, again, providing a third-party assessment standard, which is important for homeschool students, but they're also credited with instructional time for their activity, and all of this is available in reports that they can view and print from the study center anytime they please. So in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, the first thing that we have fixed with respect to homeschooling is that our students receive objective instructional time credit for their academic activity. And I'm in the process of increasing the number of activities that receive instructional time credit. Another example, which I added this week, is the ability for students to record themselves reading a lesson and submit the recording and receive instructional time credit. Our students get what is essentially attendance credit for their academic activity. This is a radical improvement for homeschool students, which gives them a great advantage. Why does it give them a great advantage? Well, first of all, modern school students only have the opportunity to earn instructional time credit when school is actually open. They can only earn instructional time credit for English when they're sitting in an English class. And that comes out to a total of about 120 hours per year. School is only open for 180 days of the year, from roughly 8 to 3. Outside of that, school students have no opportunity to obtain any instructional time credit. Homeschool students have an amazing advantage over school students, at least homeschool students in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, because our instructional time credit record system is open to the students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Anytime our students do any significant academic work, they receive instructional time credit. And it would not be strange for one of our students in the future to actually have twice as much instructional time on their high school transcript as a modern school student. So this system puts homeschooled students in our program at an amazing advantage over their peers in school, which is what homeschooling should do. We shouldn't be schooling at home, which puts our kids at a disadvantage. We should be operating in a way that puts our kids at an advantage. And in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we now do that. So that's the most important thing that we've developed. We provide our students with credit for all of their academic activity, which is visible on their instructional time reports. And that's available 24 hours a day, all day, every day, year-round. Secondly, we use AI technology to allow our students to submit written comprehension assessment exercises on every lesson in the curriculum. There's no school that would possibly think to do anything like this because the teachers simply don't want to do that kind of work, and they can't coordinate AI tools because the whole curriculum is chaotic and disconnected and all the teachers do their own things. It's just a mess. If you've ever taken an online course in a modern school outside of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, you'll likely know that their online courses are a mess. Every course is totally different. Every teacher or professor does things differently. There's no way to create an orderly, efficient system. There's no objective assessment. There's no school-wide standard. It varies from class to class, from teacher to teacher, and defeats the whole point of schooling. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we have an assessment system that evaluates, according to very detailed instructions, every single written assignment and provides students with grades and feedback on 10 different grading criteria. So they get grades and feedback on every single writing assignment that they submit. And even better, they can revise and resubmit any assignment that they complete. So there's no reason why they can't receive the highest grades on every assignment. It's all self-paced, it's all open-ended. So the students, again, in our program have very great advantage over school students because their assignments are open-ended. They can complete them, submit them, receive grades and feedback, and then revise and improve them and resubmit them and get more grades and feedback and continue until they have perfect or nearly perfect grades on all of their assignments and all of their courses. So not only do they have an advantage with instructional time, they also have an advantage with grading. The same is true of quizzes and tests. Our quiz system provides quizzes which are untimed, which are intended to help students develop mastery of their lessons. And they can retake quizzes as many times as they like, and their highest grade is recorded in the grade book. Tests are timed quizzes, and the same thing is true. Even though they work under the pressure of a time limit, they're able to retest as many times as they wish and continually raise their grades. Higher grades is simply a result of working, of continuing to persevere in work until the highest grades are attained. It makes no sense why schools give a kid a test, the kid receives a score, and then that gets carved into stone in his records. It makes no sense. Students in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy aren't assessed or graded like that. So not only does it give instructional time benefits to homeschool students, it also gives grading benefits and advantages to homeschool students, which they should have. They should have these advantages. It makes no sense why homeschool programs have not offered these advantages. It's really just because of laziness, a lack of concern to actually solve the problem. Why? Because they were able to make money doing much, much less. And they were content to leave all the problems in place, to allow this whole culture of mocking homeschool students, low results, and so on. They were content to allow that to exist because they were making money by the status quo. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we fix these things. Our students have advantages over school students. Now, above and beyond all that, our students also enjoy the benefit of having the most affordable education. I can't imagine the reasoning behind the prices of homeschool programs which ask the parents to do the work at home and then charge the parents tuition rates that are comparable to private school rates. Whoever pulled off that business plan is a real wizard. The parents who fall for that are just nuts. And I see these parents all the time. It's almost as if they think that you don't have a good educational solution until you're confident that you're spending a lot of money on whatever it is that you're doing. We have parents constantly trying to enroll in premium programs and pay for extra services when they're not even doing the basic work. They're not even exhausting what's available in the lowest level of enrollment. They just want to spend more because they think that if they spend more, they'll be fulfilling their responsibility somehow. But our program makes all of these benefits available through our lowest level of enrollment. I tell parents this all the time, and they don't believe me, but there is nothing that a student needs beyond our entry-level enrollment subscription. It costs only $25 a month if you pay monthly. It costs only $250 a year if you pay yearly. You basically get 2 months free, and it provides everything that a student needs for all of his studies. It's really that simple and affordable. But as I said, many parents feel like they're not responsible unless they waste thousands and thousands of dollars on educational programs and tuition payments. What I would prefer, being a father of 10 children myself, who knows the financial challenges of family life, I would prefer that parents saved money and improved their home or bought their children better clothing or signed their children up for activities that would be beneficial for their lives, extracurricular activities. Purchase a health club membership for your family. Put your daughter in ballet classes. Let your boys go join a wrestling team or take jiu-jitsu lessons. The money should be used for those things because academics are really very simple and straightforward and can be dealt with very affordably. And in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I think it looks too good to be true because Catholic parents are just used to being ripped off. And if they see a program that doesn't appear to be ripping them off, they think they're being ripped off, when in fact they're looking at a program that actually solves the problems that they have and offers them tangible benefits, low costs, greater advantages academically, greater advantages administratively, and so on. So I'd like to invite you, if you're a homeschooling parent, I'd like to invite you to check out the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. We've solved the problems of modern homeschooling. We've created a program that's worthy of Catholic education. The program actually helps the students. It actually benefits families. It actually puts them in a position where they have advantages over kids who don't even have parents and yet often end up with the same education as kids from great Catholic families. I'm happy that public schools offer education to all children. It's a great service for the common good. But there's no way that Catholic children from Catholic homes should have an education that looks anything remotely close to a public school, to a welfare education. And so I'd like to invite, if I could say, I would beg Catholic parents to look into the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. Visit our website at classicalliberarts.com. There's a free sample student account that allows you to sign into the study center and poke around and see how things work. But the price is low on purpose. We want our program to be affordable for every Catholic student, even if they're enrolled in a modern school. If you can't take your child out of school because of whatever your circumstances might be, you can still use our program to enrich and augment your children's school activities, and you can add achievements that they make in a program like ours. You can add that to their high school records when they apply to college or whatever else they pursue as adults. So again, I invite you to visit the Classical Liberal Arts Academy's website at classicalliberarts.com. Read the enrollment page. That's the most important page I'd like you to read through. Learn how the program works, and then don't spite yourself. Make use of the program and give your kids the advantages that living in a good Catholic family should give them. Don't force your children to end up with a welfare education, which really makes no sense. You do the great work. You enjoy the benefits of Catholic matrimony. Your children should enjoy the benefits of that life. Don't allow yourself to get ripped off and have that taken away from you. If you have any questions, my wife actually hosts the live chat throughout the day and into the evening. If you have any questions as a parent, feel free to get on there and chat with my wife. She's a homeschooling mother of 10 children. She can help you with any questions you have, work through all the practical details, and allow you to move forward with confidence. So again, visit us at classicalliberalarts.com and give your children the advantages and benefits that they deserve. I hope that's helpful. God bless.